It's important to note that the process of data encapsulation begins at the upper layers and works its way down. At layer 7, we start off with user information. This is where the user points, clicks, types, does something. Some type of interaction with the network using one of those applications that we indicated before at the application layer. This user information is converted into data. As we mentioned at layer 6, we mentioned before that the user information is going to be put into some type of format. This is going to be referred to as data. In general, the upper 3 layers could all be referred to as data because it doesn't do any changing at layer 5. So technically, layers 5, 6, and 7, we could refer to all of these as data, where the data starts off unencapsulated. That data is then sent to the transport layer, where the data has a header placed on it, which turns it into a segment. It's now referred to as a segment. Another reference that you'll see this data referred to as a PDU, or protocol data unit. This protocol data unit here is data. Now they call it a segment because it has a segment header. That segment header contains that source port and destination port numbers, as we mentioned. Then that segment is passed on down to layer 3, where it's encapsulated again with a packet header. That packet header contains source IP address and destination IP address. Source and destination IP address. And then that packet is sent down to layer 2, where we have a frame, where you have the frame header that is attached to the packet, which now that frame header has a source MAC address and a destination MAC address. So we've got data encapsulated into the segment header. By the way, that data is here in the payload, okay? Now this entire segment becomes the payload for the packet. So this entire segment becomes this payload right here, and it's just viewed as data. And then this entire packet is just viewed as data inside the frame. So that data is encapsulated into what's called a frame. So data, segment, packet, frame. These frames are then divided or broken up into bytes, and those bytes into bits. Here at layer 1, we refer to this as bits. These bits, or electrical signals, are going to be transmitted across the media as electrical signals, which we would represent by 1s and 0s. Those bits are transmitted across the media to the receiving device. At the receiving device, the process of de-encapsulation takes place, where on that receiving device, device B over here, device B receives those bits on its NIC card, or on its network interface card, and rearranges those bits into bytes, and those bytes into, yes, frames. Device B looks at the frame to determine, is this my MAC address? If it's my MAC address, then I will strip off the frame header and then look inside the packet, look inside to see what's inside the packet. Device B once again looks at the destination IP address to determine, is this my IP address? If it's my IP address, then I'll strip off the packet header and I'll now have a segment. Then device B looks at the segment header, where there's a source port and destination port, looks at the destination port to determine the upper layer application to send it to. If the destination port, say for instance, says port number 23, then I'm going to send this up to my telnet application. Open up my telnet application. So this is going to be telnet data, at which point the user at the other end will then have user info, user information, something useful that can be utilized. So the process of de-encapsulation is, once again, bits into frames, frames to packets, packets to segment. Inside the segment header, we consider the destination port to determine what application to open up, and that becomes user information that can be useful on the receiving device. So this is networking in a nutshell. The process of encapsulation begins at the application layer as user information or user input. It's formatted into data at the presentation layer. It's then encapsulated at layer 4 as a segment, at layer 3 as a packet, at layer 2 as a frame. It's divided into bits and transmitted across the media at layer 1. It's then de-encapsulated by the receiving device as bits, then frames, then packets, then segment, and finally back up to the layer 6 and layer 7 where we have data and user information that can be useful. It's important to note that routers and switches, the networking devices that we'll be utilizing in this course, are not concerned with what the application data actually is. They're not concerned with whether it's a love letter, a love picture, a love movie, or a love song, whether it's a JPEG, ASCII, whether it's MPEG or MIDI. The reality is, to the receiving hardware device, it's just data. And so it's going to encapsulate that data in the same way, regardless of what type of application it came from or is going to. So at the lower layers, we're going to focus throughout most of this course on how to actually move those packets from one source device to a destination device.